Time now for news review. Stay tuned to Press TV. Italy has stressed all-out support for Kiev as President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrives in Rome on his first trip to the country since the conflict began in Ukraine. Italian President Sergio Mattarella told his Ukrainian counterpart that Rome is ready to provide Kiev with aid in terms of military, financial, humanitarian, and reconstruction in the long and short terms. Zelenskyy also met with Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni before heading for the Vatican and meeting with Pope Francis. Zelenskyy will also travel to Germany as part of his tour to Europe. He is promoting a 10-point peace plan which calls for restoring Ukraine's territorial integrity, the withdrawal of Russian troops, and the cessation of hostilities. Okay, what Zelenskyy is doing in Europe and what Europeans are doing, let's discuss this. So let me invite Max Chivali, our correspondent in Rome. Also, Gilbert Doctorow is an independent international affairs analyst, is joining us from Brussels. Good to see you, gentlemen. So beginning with Rome, Max, don't you have enough of your own problems back in Italy? Where you've been reporting different kinds of strikes, and we've been airing it on Press TV. Now, looks like all the problems have been solved in Italy. You're going to reach out to Ukraine, huh?
No, you're right. You're right. Italy is facing several problems, starting from the rising energy costs, from unemployment, the cost of living. But despite that, and despite the fact that basically more than half of Italians are against sending more weapons to Ukraine, which means spending more weapons spending more money to produce the weapons. Today, Prime Minister Meloni has pledged full support, once again pledged full support to Zelenskyy, to the Ukraine's president. Italy has already furnished about 1 billion euros in military and financial aid to Ukraine, of course, as well as humanitarian assistance. That includes the costly SAMP-T air defense system, which has a value of around 800 million euros. But it's not just Meloni, the Prime Minister Meloni, who pledged support to Ukraine. As you mentioned before, the day has been marked by a certain lack of originality, as also Italian President Sergio Mattarella said that Italy is fully at Ukraine's side, and also Italy's Foreign Minister Tajani. So it's been more or less the same concepts have been expressed today, very similar to those expressed by Prime Minister Meloni in February when she went to Kiev.
All right, now Gilbert, despite all the problems, we just mentioned Italy is not just one of the countries in Europe. You know, we have the UK. They just provided them with some cruise missiles. They promised that those missiles will not be used to hit areas inside Russia, I mean residential areas. And just an hour ago, we had this report that it did hit those areas. Now, despite all the cost of living crisis, all the economic woes and issues that Europeans are facing, what is this that is urging them, and as if they have no control, and they feel committed to offering all this assistance to Kiev despite all the issues they have back at home?
I'll be very pleased to comment on the delivery by Britain of the cruise missiles with 250-kilometer range that were used yesterday on the 12th of May in a destructive attack on a couple of factories in downtown Lugansk, with consequential damage to nearby residences and 6 injured children. That is in the most recent news bulletin here in Russia. And it is putting us well on the way to a UK-Russia war, because whatever moderation Mr. Putin has shown, and it's enormous moderation, enormous caution and restraint, his hand will be subordinated to popular will and to the will of the nationalists who are his supporters and who will not tolerate any attacks on Russian homeland The attack on Lugansk may be seen as a dress rehearsal for an attack on Sevastopol or the Crimea, which would be the equivalent to all-out war with the UK. But I'd like to take a step back, since we started this program with Italy, and I have a complimentary remark to your representative in Italy. I don't believe for a minute that Prime Minister Meloni is in control of the situation. The Italians are not stupid the way the Germans are stupid and when a German business is rolling over and dying at the request of their chancellor. Italians are pragmatists, which is a rare quality in Europe and the world today in this age of ideologies. And I am sitting in St. Petersburg, and I can tell you right now that Italy is all over the place. Our supermarket, one of the better supermarkets in this neighborhood, it's a 10-minute walk from my apartment where I'm speaking from, they have Italy Wine Week going on, and there's an enormous selection of Italian wines. If you want to pick up a nice bottle of Prosecco for Martini, hey, you don't have to go to Italy, just drop by in St. Petersburg, it's right here. My point is, the Italians cannot afford to lose the Russian market. They've invested a fortune, and they've invested it at the low level, not not just Eni, which has to listen to Meloni and pull out of Russian projects, but the medium-sized family businesses which cannot lose the Russian market.
Okay, Gilbert, what about this 10-point peace plan that Mr. Zelenskyy has, and his, I don't know if he's there to maybe do both of this, to get more military aid and also at the same time try to sell this peace plan. He wants Ukraine's territorial integrity, withdrawal of Russian troops, cessation of hostilities. Would Moscow buy this?
Well, I understand Mr. Zelenskyy trotting around Europe and supposedly promoting his peace plan, which he knows very well is a non-starter and which the Russians will never accept. He's trotting around Europe because he's afraid to go home. And I think it is an open question whether Zelenskyy will ever see Kiev again. Why is he afraid to go home? Because of the drone attack on the Kremlin that preceded the May 9th Victory Day celebrations in Moscow. That was seen as an act crossing all of Moscow's red lines, and the possibility that he will be destroyed in his bunker in Kiev is very great. His Minister of Defense, Zaluzhny, was reportedly killed. Perhaps he wasn't killed, but he was certainly injured in a Russian attack on the town of Dnipro. So Mr. Zelenskyy is doing the right thing for himself. He's not going home. Now, the reality of his plan is nonsense. He's saying it sounds very reasonable, except that what he's suggesting is that the Russians pull out and accept a defeat in negotiation that they have not experienced on the battlefield. The Russians are winning the war on the ground. Why in hell would they agree to pull out of the territories that they have liberated from the atrocities of Mr. Zelenskyy's regime?
Naturally. All right, thank you so much for that. Max Chivili in Rome, Gilbert Doctor in Brussels with our comments. And that's it for this episode of the News Review on Press TV.